Welcome to Final Expense Telesales. My name is Dana Neeson, or should I say greetings and salutations? We have
Howdy.
David, we have David Duford on the channel today. Thank you, David, for joining me on such
Thank
last
you.
minute notice.
Appreciate it. We're all busy, kids and all. So,
Kids and all, business and all. And the reason that I asked you on is because you posted something on social media, I think it was Facebook, a couple days ago on kind of a list of things that still shock you, although you've been in the business for 13 years. And I've only been in the business for 4 years, so I'm still such a baby. I was planning on doing an episode on your list, but I thought, hey, I want to invite the author himself so we could talk about it together because I
sure.
really am interested in hearing the content, the context behind what you wrote, and then just have a discussion about it. And I really think it'll help agents. And kind of before I go over this list with you, I just want the audience to know that even when I was first an infant in the industry in my first year, you were so gracious to like welcome me into the business when I reached out to you. I had some questions and I was just really brand new, didn't know what I didn't know. And then I had a chance to meet you in person at Cody Askin's influencer event. And I just want to thank you for always just being so genuine and so kind
Sure.
and always working with integrity. And I just really appreciate that.
Yeah, appreciate you. And thank you for having me on. I appreciate that a lot too.
Great. Okay. So you wrote 7 things that after 13 years in the insurance business, you are still shocked. Number one, how many new agents get swooped up into the MLM frenzy? Now, I don't see that as much anymore as
It's
I
slowed
used
down.
to.
I agree. I agree. It slowed down. It really peaked. I think I have the theory that final expense really picked up an interest with some of the three-letter IMOs
Uh-huh.
that became popular at the end of the 20 teens.
Yes.
And it peaked like post COVID by a year or two.
Yeah.
A lot of these companies have been bought out by private equity. And I think to some extent, some of the founders that were really the charisma behind the companies have understandably taken a step back and enjoying their money. I hope they are. But there doesn't seem to be the same groundswell of just cult like devotion that seemed to be the commonality over the last couple of years. But I still think it happens. You see this more, I think, less in final expense, maybe, but more in life insurance broadly.
Hmm.
Companies that pitch, I call it blue sky, just come over here and by working with us in just a matter of a few days, you'll be a millionaire and you'll make all the money you want with very little effort. I mean, I'm kind of elaborating a little
For
bit,
sure.
but it's along the lines of what they say. You just talk to enough people and recruit them in, you too will be successful. And I guess I shouldn't be surprised by this stuff. I mean, I've been doing this long enough. It's kind of human behavior to some extent.
Yeah.
The guys that run these MLMs are typically incredible salespeople by design. They know what to say to maneuver and move the masses in a way that excites them, even if it's irrational. But people still, with all the information on YouTube between me and your channel and whatever else is out there, people still get caught up in this mess. I guess that is kind of surprising on some level.
What I have noticed the most from those types of companies and the leaders within it is a lot more of lifestyle posts. Like, look at
Yeah.
me doing this, look at me here, look what I'm wearing, look what I'm carrying. A lot more of that type of content and less let me teach you how to make this work content. So that's what's surprising to me about it is that people are attracted to the lifestyle content versus the actually how to be successful content. And
Right.
it's really hard for me to drink that Kool-Aid and say, well, if that's what people want, let me give it to them. But I
All
don't
right,
think I
I
can
have
ever
to
get
tell
on
you,
that train.
I don't mean to interrupt, but
That's okay.
I'm going through this crisis of limiting beliefs myself. Like I am not the guy to show off anything. I'm very humble,
Yeah.
believe it or not. I'd rather not be on social media. Like I like my anonymity. However, what I've realized, YouTube's the exception. YouTube people actually do go on to some extent and look up resources to help them. I think you have discovered that with the success of your channel. I certainly have too as well. But
Yes.
every other social platform, people are not looking for information. They're looking to be entertained and waste time. And I think for me, like I'm in the middle of this kind of, okay, you know what? Screw helpful information. I mean, we'll get to that eventually, but where is the trend of interest on
Right.
Instagram or TikTok? It's not on. Let me show you how to like open up a
Yeah.
call so you don't get objections.
I know.
It's look at my lifestyle, look at this or that, and capturing their attention that way. And for me, Dana, the way I've looked at it to rationalize this, and I may be wrong, maybe I am, maybe I'm not, is I'm going to accept that that's just reality instead of
Yeah.
fighting against it as much as I have. And then when I have their attention on these other platforms, I'm going to convert it to the typical stuff that we've always done, which is, hey, here's a legit opportunity. It's not full of crap like most of what we
Yeah.
see. So
I
I think
think that's smart. I've been watching your content change,
yeah,
and I think other people have commented on that, but I don't think it's quite to that level. But I'm definitely interested to see. I'm kind of like you, where I'm kind of digging my heels into it, but who
yeah.
knows? All right, let's move on to number two, because if we spend this much time on all of them, this will be a 3-hour podcast. All right, number two, how little new agents do their due diligence before joining an agency. I mean, this is kind of going back to number one
It
a
is. Yeah.
little bit. They're kind of similar. It's this goes back to you don't know what you don't know also.
Correct.
And
Correct.
it's damned if you do, damned if you don't. You just want to trust the people that are bringing you into it. And
It's
sometimes
natural.
you have to fail forward to have the perspective so that you have the insight to be able to then search for what you do want based on those mistakes. So in some ways, I kind of think number two works to our advantage.
Yeah, it's human nature ultimately. Again, regardless of all the resources out there that you can do due diligence and start to do some investigation, people ultimately make a decision based off of do they trust the person or not. And it doesn't happen at just our levels. It happens
Everywhere.
at the high end levels where there's billions of dollars being moved. Like we like to think it all comes down to stats and figures, but it really doesn't. It should to some extent, but it ultimately is going to come down to do you trust the person or not to take that leap of faith. I guess my kind of axe to grind. I don't really have an axe to grind. I mean, it is what it is, but you should always trust but verify. Trust but cut the cards, right?
Right.
I like to tell people who are new to this business that remember you're leaving your career, you're leaving behind the career and the progression that you've made in it. To what extent? To take a leap of faith into a brand new career, which you truly know nothing about. Let's face it. So I think it's incumbent upon you to the people you're responsible for, your family, yourself, to make sure when you make that leap of faith that it is a calculated risk. It's going to be a risk either way, but is it a calculated one? And that's why I suggest, slow down, do your due diligence, interview around, talk to different agencies,
Mhm.
ask for references, like because you're making a big change. And if it was a honest business across the board 100%, then I wouldn't recommend this. But unfortunately, there are bad players in this business, and you just have to be that way.
Right. That's a hard one for me, because I think even asking for references as a putting myself in a new agent shoes, those references that I'm going to be given are going to be cherry picked, right? If you're looking at the bad seeds. So I think that's a hard one, but I think it's a good video idea,
My
being able to-
concept, so the way I would hone that down is by asking for references. There's a tell in that. If, for example, somebody asks me for references, I give them to them. Yeah, I cherry pick them. They're going to get the best agents or the top 10 or whatever,
Mm.
right?
Yeah.
But I'm not going to micromanage the conversation and I'm going to facilitate that process,
Yeah.
right? And I think there's something to be said too that if the agency doesn't provide references of at least three agents that enjoy or are doing well, what does that speak to the results that the agency is actually getting, or what are they wanting to withhold if they don't want to even have you have a conversation with somebody who's doing well? So
I'm
I
going to
think
play
that's how
devil's
the agents
advocate
look
to
at it.
that real quick because I've actually invited potential agents to like my Monday sales meetings, so that way they could see what's happening, like what we talk about. We talk, the top agents talk about their best practices and what they did the week before to see success. Because sometimes, here's where I struggle with that. Sometimes I can get so many people that are like, well, I want to talk to your top agents. I don't want to turn my top agents into recruiters for me
Sure.
and constantly bring them off the phones and like make it their responsibility to have a 10-minute conversation with someone who needs
It's never
validity.
10 minutes.
Exactly. And so I do struggle with that. So even though I respect what you're saying, I have had people say, well, I was told I need to get references. And I'm like, it's not their job. So I struggle with that one, not trying to withhold anything, but trying to protect my agents.
Yeah, I think so. What I do when it's asked of me, I give them emails. Like I don't let them talk to the agent because for that
Mm,
very reason, like my manager who runs the show, really
yeah,
our program, he gets on to me. He's like, Dave, I don't want these guys off the phone. Like, what are you
right.
stupid? I'm like, what? This, I'm like, this whole side. So I understand both sides. So I like the idea of what you're doing. It's like, well, what's the whole point of asking for references? It's to validate what is being sold, right?
Yes,
It's to show transparency and authenticity and a connection between the front end and what actually happens. If you give references out, great, or have them come to a group. I think the outcome is the same. We're
yes,
not afraid to show you happy, successful people that you could probably chat with on there to some extent, or at
yeah,
least see them interacting and see results. I think that's the outcome of that. That hey, we'll show you what it's like in a constrained way, but we'll give you more confidence that we actually do what we say. So I think that's a great compromise.
good. All right, let's go to number 3. How many people underestimate the commitment and focus required to see success? This one I could go on a soapbox for. How many people underestimate the commitment? Now, when you say the commitment, is that really just in the context of time or
It's
what
just it's
other?
everything. It's this is just a an argument from the standpoint of what it takes to be successful, right? I mean, if we were to look at some fundamentals of, well, how can anybody be successful at anything? First of all, they have to learn to say no once they've said yes. That's really hard. To say I'm all in on final expense when I'm getting constant solicitations and promos for Medicare, ACA, annuities, IULs, it's difficult, especially in the hard weeks, right? So it's
Yes,
being able to be focused. And then it's really being able to compound upon that focus with your investment of your time. Um, Agents don't work as much as they say they do, right? And
right.
to really put in the time and to be really all in, most people don't go all in to the extent that they could. And that to me, the way I look at it is you have to go all in if you're going to be successful at anything. And so that's kind of where I'm at there is I see this kind of circling the bull effect. And I have since I began in the business. The agent comes in, they're excited by this, but then they get distracted by that. And then they're like, well, I'm going to do my own lead generation. I'm like, crap. Now I know it's going to happen in about a month or two. There's a
Yeah.
95% chance that they're going to fail out because they spent all their money on leads. And it's the same story over. And you could say, it doesn't matter what you say to them, they're fixated that they know that they've got the better outcome, not the guy or gal who's been in it long enough and who's seen this 1,000 times. So it's kind of I'm not surprised, I guess, on some level,
Now,
because you've
you've
got
recently opened up your program to accept part-time agents, and I'm still on the stance that we're not taking part-time agents, and here's why, and I want to hear
sure, yeah,
your perspective. So a full-time agent in my definition is someone that wants to work 40 to 50 hours a week. 90% of the people that say they're going to work 40 to 50 hours a week end up working 20 to 30 hours a week. And so if I now accept part-time agents, which is maybe 20 to 30 hours a week or 15 to 20 hours a week, or 20 being the minimum, I already know that that's going to result in 5 to 10, maybe 15 hours a week. So now I'm getting less than part-time. And is that even worth it? What are you finding?
I think a lot of behavior you want to to have is should be motivated by the compensation structure. That's
Mhm.
that that's things that we're looking at right now. At the filming of this is changing the compensation structure to motivate people to work those kind of hours
Yep.
because we both know that the more time on task that you have, the more money's made. It's crazy, right? There's a
Yep.
direct correlation. If you've
Yes.
got a talented agent who knows their skill set, the more they sell or they're on the phone, the more money they're going to make, right? And so, but what happens is, like you, this is what we've discovered too. The full timers, they're actually putting in 25 or 30 hours a week. Now they're making good sales,
Right.
but how do we motivate them to go to 40 to 45 to 50? Well, you got to structure a comp plan that makes them want to do that as opposed to becoming complacent. So to me, that's kind of an answer to that problem, which is separate from part-time. The reason we went part-time, Dana, and you know me, like the last time we were doing our thing at Cody's event, I was like, no, part-timers suck, blah, 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 blah. And,
Part-time suck.
but I always am willing to like be wrong. So anything you say, I'm like flat out against. Watch, I'll probably turn around and say, well, what if, you know? So totally serious. But yeah, so we've rebuilt our system when it comes to the distribution of leads to be more accommodating to part-timers.
Mhm.
So to an extent, at this present time, it's October 24. You may watch this and it's not the case anymore.
Yeah.
We're experimenting with this idea of, okay, if somebody does want to come in 15 to 20 hours and they actually put 15 to 20 hours on the dialer,
Disclaimer.
disclaimer, then, okay, if they get a couple of sales and they're okay, let's see. But the fear, of course, is that, as you know, part-timers take as much, if not more time to train and to
Yes.
deal because they're not fully committed. They've
Right.
got one foot in and one foot out in something else. And having a bunch of part-timers tends to be a time suck, right, for the operations guy or gal. So it's kind of a to be continued. I have no problem, you know, throwing the whole thing in the trash again if it doesn't work. So we'll see.
Okay. Well, let's go to number 4. This is one of my favorites, I think. That you're surprised with how many agents think that having leads means sales should come with no resistance or pushback.
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
So this goes back to I did not it's not a meme. I did some video on Instagram like last year where I did my interpretation of what agents think a lead is. And I think in their head, they think that someone's just waiting by the phone, staring at it, waiting to be called by a life insurance agent, and then welcoming the call. I've been sitting here waiting. Thank you so much for calling me. I am ready to buy. And even though that's satirical and probably not really what they think, I think that that is a huge part of what people think sales is. So, where did that come from you? What are you hearing?
Oh, I mean, we had a couple of agents I heard in our Slack group. They were complaining about the old leads, right? So we run in our free lead. We have fresh leads and
Yep.
old leads. We flat out give a higher percentage of fresh leads to the people who have deserved it and earned it, which is our top producers.
Yeah.
We give them way more than of fresh leads than the new people
As you
because
should.
they've earned the right as they should. We play favorites. Okay, that's the way it is. However, the new people didn't get there by just working fresh leads. They
Correct.
also worked their way up to that level of working age leads and having success with them. And they always will work age leads too. It's never going to go away because age leads keeps you sharp with your script. It keeps you on point. Sometimes success begets success. And if you do too much fresh leads, you forget how to like actually sell at like peak levels.
Well, the
But
other thing you've posted is that you're going to see a big percentage of leads convert right away. Then
yeah.
you're going to have a little dip, and then what happens? We have another peak when
Mhm.
it becomes quote unquote aged.
So for us, approximately at any given point, 30 to 40% of our sales come from leads that are 7 days or 8 days or older. That's what we
Mhm.
call an age lead, which in all actuality, those first couple of days, really like 3 to 5, are the hot spots to convert. But
Mhm.
I mean, we have every single day, there's agents saying, yeah, I'll just close an age lead from February. It's
Yeah.
October right now, right?
Mhm.
So here's the thing. There are agents complaining in our Slack group about the age leads. And I was trying to find a meme from Glengarry Glen Ross, the leads are weak, no, you're weak, because like you can complain, but the nice thing in our culture is like we purposely designed it to where the people at the top have done exactly the same thing as the people at the bottom who are just starting. So they can't come in and complain because they're not going to find any sort of, nobody's going to coddle them. Right. But bottom line, a lead is just an opportunity to
Yes.
have a conversation. It is not a guarantee sale. You still have to sell them on you. And that's what new agents don't understand is that they've made a decision to request information, but that's a marginal level of commitment. They need to be convinced of who you are. That's the big thing. Who
Hmm.
the company is. Can I trust them?
Hmm.
Can I afford it? Can I even get it? Is it worth the time, the hassle? And that requires a salesperson convincing and overcoming that resistance, objections, to get to that point. So that's not a bug in the system. That's a feature, meaning that's normal for all leads. You're going to get
Yeah.
that on fresh leads as well as age leads.
On the fresh leads, what is it? Just send me the information. I didn't want to talk to someone,
Yeah.
or I don't have time right now, or I changed my mind, right? Or I'm no longer interested. Like you're going to get all that with brand new leads. We see that all the time.
We see it with even with like people think, oh, I got to get the TV leads. I got to get the leads that are coming in. Of course, they're all interested. They're calling us.
Yeah.
They've got their own set of objections that you've got to
Yes.
overcome. So just get over it. You're in sales. Nobody wants what you're selling until you overcome their innate natural issues that any normal person would have. And then once you overcome them, then you're going to discover if it's a prospect or not. Many times it is, if you'll
Hmm.
just learn how to deal with it.
Okay, good. Number 5. How some agents have no interest in receiving constructive criticism or feedback on what they're doing wrong so they can begin the process of growth and improvement. Now, this is actually something that I have personally been working on over the last year. And I know that you don't, I'm like the equivalent of your Tim, right? In how we run the business, where he's doing a lot of the training. I'm doing a lot of the training. I have 4 managers that do training. But if Tim were on here, I would definitely be asking him questions about how he's approaching some of that feedback. Because one of the things that I learned about myself is when I would do one-on-one call reviews or even some of the group trainings, the main focus would be, okay, let's pull up calls and see where we can find all the things that you're doing wrong. And I got away from validating and giving people feedback on what they're doing right. And so it was too heavy on the what can we do better and less focus on what we are doing well at, the people that I was wanting to give feedback to. Once I kind of started finding more of a balance there, people became less resistant to receiving feedback on how to improve. So, where did that come from for you?
Well, okay. So what we've discovered is, frankly, there are just some categories of people that will not, under any circumstances, take coaching, but they think that they're qualified to actually sell this stuff.
Yeah.
There is an ego that gets in the way of any of that. They think that they know better than you or me. And the trick is, as a company, never to hire those people, never, ever, ever, and figure out a filter
Mhm.
to get rid of those people. There are just some people you're never going to convince that they need help, right? So as opposed to trying to fix what's broken, that's impossible to fix, I just really strive hard to avoid it entirely. So that's kind of like step one.
Okay.
So for us, a lot of our techniques, which are brutal, and I'll get to that in a minute,
Okay.
um, are best used on people who have a propensity to accept that. And that's what we're looking for in our application and interview process, which is a minority of the population. Most people don't have the humility and the ability to take very constructive criticism because it's uncomfortable.
It
And
is. Yeah.
and it's uh, so that's number one. So for us, I mean, we're brutal. We'll call out people who, because remember, it's my money in these
I know.
leads.
I know.
It's Adam's money up
I
in these.
know. Trust me. Off camera. You know, there's plenty of things I'd like to say.
So I give Tim, so the way our relationship works is I'm like, Tim, you do whatever you want. You know what you're doing. You're a pro. And some things I cringe at sometimes that I wouldn't do because I'm more of a softie, to be honest with you. I'm not like Tim. Tim's brutal. He'll call you out in front of a group of people, but not, and I don't say call out, not like to like insult you. That's not his intention. It is how people take it who are weak-willed
Correct.
and don't
Correct. If they
understand
feel
the nature.
embarrassed or, yeah.
Right. But you
Mhm.
have to us, we want to tell you exactly what your problem is, make you as aware of it as possible so that you actually fix it. And what has happened is we always get pushback from people, our top producers who have done this.
Mhm.
But when they implement it, they're like, well, damn, it actually worked. Thank you. And there's some kind of connection that the agent now has with us, specifically Tim,
Yeah.
and they're understanding that, oh, this is like a father figure who is beating me up in a good way to
Yeah.
see that I do the best that I can possible. And it's just a lot of people just can't take it.
That
And
tough love
it's
principle.
tough love. It's
Yeah.
absolutely, yeah. I mean, we have a meme in our group, and it's Tim's mugshot, and it says Tim Hildebrand, the best friend of successful agents. And whenever anybody complains, they post it in there. And so, like, and the guys that have all posted that stuff, they've been slapped around, figuratively speaking,
Yeah.
when they were having a rough time. But they do that because they know that ultimately the way you get to the next level is getting uncomfortable.
Right.
And if you don't have that ability to accept that, then you're just going to struggle, man. And we all get complacent as we rise up and we start getting successful. We let off the gas a little bit. Well, that's where a good manager comes in and slaps around and says, no, that's unacceptable. You're getting weak. You need to
Yeah.
get back on doing this, this, and this. And with us, one last thing, Dana, for us, it's two things we're concerned about that we really focus on. It's the opening and the close. If I
Sure.
can get improved metrics out of the opening, and everything else stays the same, well, I'm going to have a multiplier effect on the amount of sales because I'm talking to more people now.
More people. Right.
Same thing on the close. So we really try to hone in on where we really focus on constructive criticism on one or the other. Because if you can, that's where most of the problems happen, as you know.
Sure.
Um, yeah.
Okay. Good. No, I like that one. And I think that it's a combination of, like you said, the people problem, not being able to look at themselves in the mirror and take that feedback. But I would also challenge Tim to recognize also that some people will make changes if they're given feedback in a different way. That's just
Sure.
personal work that I've been doing.
Sure. Sure.
Okay, let's move on. Number six, we have two left. Number six, how some agents look at final expense producers as peddlers, even though there are top final expense agents making more money than well-dressed financial planners. So, what do you mean by peddlers? I know what I think you mean, but I want to
Oh,
hear it.
the snake oil salesman, the person selling some water filter, some nominal product, magazines, some lowbrow used car salesman, right? So the idea, I think in our business model, if you talk to people who are, selling real insurance, they
Right.
deal with, the fancy clients and stuff. They look at some of them, not all of them, but some of
Okay.
them look at final expense like really you're selling that. Well, I'm selling very important people, and they have this whole demeanor about themselves. But then a lot of them don't make any money because they don't have prospects, and they look good, but they don't have the bank account to prove it. Whereas there's people like in your agency and mine that are normal people that are helping other normal people and making way more money.
Yeah.
So it's just kind of like I've gotten this feel from people. I read some Facebook groups, and you get this kind of like holier than thou look because you're selling some,
So,
something a poorer person, let's face it, a lower income person would buy,
mhm.
as if that's some sort of testament that it's a bad product, which I think is
The
much.
closest thing I've seen to that is two ways. The first way is I have seen in forums where people are saying, well, selling final expense is a good place to start.
Mhm.
I see that a lot. Like this is your starting place because it's easy and you can work your way up to selling more sophisticated products that make you more money. So I have seen that, which I think is funny. And then the second thing I get is on interviews, why are you only selling final expense? Like, what if a client wants this policy or mortgage protection? Like, we can't help them. And so I've always come into this industry with the philosophy of I don't really care what the widget is. I don't care what I'm selling. I want to look at it and what is the opportunity? How many people can I sell to? What is like, can I make a living off of it? And all the other stuff is just noise. And I know you have found, and I have certainly have found that there is tremendous opportunity in final expense. The market is huge. There's plenty of room for so many players. It's never going to go away. And I'm proud to be a final expense, agent, leader, manager in this one niche. Absolutely.
So, yeah, it's funny if we step back and think about this, it's like how many times do we go to an annual Starbucks meeting and be like, why aren't you guys in the chicken business? Like,
Yeah.
why don't you guys serve dinner or alcohol? It's like, well, we're Starbucks. We're a coffee company. We know what we're good at and we stick to what we're good at.
Yeah.
And it's a Chick-fil-A. They don't do
Right.
burgers or
Very limited
tacos.
menu.
Yeah. So look at it. You have to look at this is a business and you're picking a niche, right? And
Yeah.
our niche is final expense. And incidentally, kind of ties in with the last point, you know, when you're really good at one thing, yeah, sure, your breadth is small, but your depth is very deep. And you need depth, I think, in a product understanding and a strategy to get success. Whereas if you're trying to do multiple products, right? This is why I mean I made the mistake a couple of years ago pushing Medicare and ACA
Right.
along with final expense because I like the idea and it sounds good on paper, but the reality is after all those years of pushing that I can count on one hand the amount of agents that actually made a success out of cross-selling Medicare to final expense.
Me.
It just doesn't work as much as we'd like it to. Whereas what will work is if you just do the one thing,
Yeah.
you do it really well, and you do it for years. Go figure. Keep
I
it simple.
agree. I agree. I do think the majority of people thrive in a very structured, predictable environment where one app, I mean, you have more apps. How many carriers are you guys with?
I think at any get well, so we start agents with four or five. We'll let agents pick up more over
Okay.
time.
Cool.
Um, I would
But still
like to.
an app, right? I mean, how different can an e-app be from one carrier to the next for final expense? And I
It's
don't know.
not bad. It's
It can't be that different, can it?
No, it's we don't like seeing agents run around with like 10 different companies. Now, if somebody's been doing this long enough and they can like mentally juggle all that stuff, great. But there is definitely room for simplicity, and you want to keep it simple, especially in the beginning, for sure.
Okay. All right. Last point. I can't believe we're already at the end. How new agents with zero experience selling insurance or anything else can experience success rapidly if they check their ego at the door, accepting coaching and training, and then apply what they learn immediately. So, breaking this down again, you're shocked. So, you're shocked that new agents with no experience in sales or no experience in selling life insurance can be successful immediately if they check their ego at the door, accept the coaching and the training, and then apply what they learn. And of course, go all in and put in the hours they said they're going to work. Well, I mean, that's obviously, I think, a no brainer. I think the ones that do check their ego at the door are the ones that are going to be the most successful.
Well, I mean, it is kind of shocking. It's cool in a shocking kind of way that somebody who's brand new can come in and wipe the floor from all the vets at the agency. Like we've got a new guy, Michael, and he's been on a month or two. He's already number two in the company. I mean,
No.
he's already up. I think I looked this morning. It's Thursday night. He was up 15 apps. So this is crazy. And I mean, he's mopping the floor because what he does is like pro tip to any agents watching this, like he stops a couple times a day and runs his script, focuses on practicing it, ironing out the mistakes he made. Like he's doing continual improvement,
Mm-hmm.
and then gets back on the phone. He puts the time in and he puts the practice in and he
Mm-hmm.
repeats the effort day over day over day. And it's all fun and it's
So
brand new
simple.
guy, so I think it's cool. It's shockingly
It's
cool
cool.
that that is available to the people who really want something out of this business. That no, you don't have to be in this business 5 or 10 years like a lot of industries before you start, having a chance to make six figures. I mean, it's right there in front of you. If you have the proper agency, support, system, all that good stuff
Yep.
in combination with humility, checking your ego at the door, and going all in, which is all, of course, easier said than done. Adam has said that for years, of course. And, he would
That's
know.
pretty much the job description though.
Yeah.
When we have our
Yeah.
sales meetings every Monday and we talk about successes and producers talk about what they did, it ends up being just like the rinse cycle. It's the same thing.
Yeah.
They show up, they set a schedule, they don't deviate, they follow the script, they ask for help, they come to coaching, they treat it like a job, they don't take shortcuts. I mean, it's all the things that we're preaching everybody to do. But once they go in there and apply it and they get a person on the phone who all of a sudden isn't following the script, right? Gives them, wait, you mean the customers aren't going to follow the script? Nope, they won't. That
So,
when you
so
pull up
simple.
the
It's
results.
hard.
Yeah. Yeah. They just follow the system. And hopefully if the people that are watching this, it's really not as difficult as sometimes people make it out to be. David has a great system. I have a great system. There's other companies that don't have a free lead telesales model where there are successful agents who are just following a system. And if you just follow the system of the people that came before you and built it, it is the roadmap to success.
Don't let this big old brain get in the way. That's your problem. You, not you, Dana, but everybody else's agent's problem. Like that's like stop thinking, just do what you're told. Like if you can think up to the point of finding a good agency, that's when you check your brain at the door and you just follow the system. Like resist the urge to question the system, resist the urge to like overthink the system. Just do the system because remember, Dana and me, we don't get paid unless you get paid first. All right.
Right.
So everything that we do is designed to facilitate your ability to make money if you just follow the system. Okay.
Just follow the system. Well, thank you so much, David, for being on here today. It was really fun to come together and also show the audience that leaders at different companies have tremendous respect for each other. And it's fun seeing your free lead telesales program grow and thrive. Love it.
Thanks, Dan.